Uh-oh. Gotta push the button. Push the button.
You're still here. I can see you.
We good?
We're live. Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. Thanks for
Yeah, good to be here.
Well, hey, we had a little rough start this morning. Computers updating, not knowing how to link in. We all have those issues, but we're here. We need to thank Elka Suspension for bringing all these shows to you guys. They support ATV Talk and make sure that more and more information gets out about ATVs and where we're racing and where we're riding and what we're doing. So make sure you get on the phone with your Elka dealer and buy some shocks. If you're in Arizona, make sure you schedule an Antelope Slot Canyon tour. This will change your life. The canyons are beautiful and there's some great scenery. If you're an amateur photographer, you will become a professional because it's pretty awesome there. So check those things out. Joe Tolle from ATV On Demand, Mike Walsh from Walsh Racecraft. Guys, hey, it's a pleasure to have you back on. Joe, I know you've been doing a project, and Mike, you have a pretty unique project going yourself. Um, there's a lot of stir about it. A lot of people have talked about it. There's some pluses, there's some minuses. And you're kind of on the cutting edge of most of the innovations that we're catching in the industry now with electric quads and some of the other things that you've done. Have you gotten any negative feedback on this electric quad?
Absolutely, tons of negative feedback.
Really?
Bitches.
The general piston head type guy, he's not into it, but that's okay. I mean, I like the position we're in. I mean, I know Elon Musk catches a bunch of flack in these Teslas and and all this stuff, and the Stark brand, I don't know, I know they weren't allowed to. We talked about that last time, the X Games deal. So, but yeah, there's a lot of media that's negative.
Well, you're getting media or you're getting social media feedback?
So, social, not media, social media, feedback from the general public.
Okay. Specifically, what are some of the things that they're saying before we get into this conversation a little deeper?
Well, that only a homosexual would ride that.
Oh, damn.
Wow, damn.
No, you go right to the throat right there. Jeez, oh.
We we didn't know quads could get any gayer, but you've accomplished.
So do you have those guys that are posting so that we can call them up and talk to them?
Well, here's the funny thing. A lot of the people that post stuff like that, you can't comment back to them. They don't accept comments. So not all of them, but most of them that post aggressively like that. And then you have the normal feedback with, how is battery life? I can't ride without the noise. A lot of people really like the sound of the 4 strokes or the 2 strokes, which I'm the biggest gearhead out there, so I understand, I understand their concerns. But like I always say, after you ride it once, you're like, it is different, but it's really cool and it's insanely fast. So some of those concerns go out the window after you ride it. And now we got the thumb throttle on it. So that was real cool. The thumb throttle deal really worked well.
Can we put the man's throttle back on it so I can ride it?
Everything needs a thumb throttle.
Really easy. You literally, you really put it in and plug it in. That's it, because it's fly-by-wire.
Oh, nice. So it is a fly-by-wire system. Is there on most of your fly-by-wire systems, there's a lag. Is there a lag in the system, or is it direct, instantaneous?
No, there's zero lag, because you got to realize this is just electricity. It's not a fly-by-wire opening a butterfly or something like that. There's zero lag. I actually liked it better with the twist throttle, and I hate twist throttle. But when we put the thumb throttle on, the ratio, because what happens is we made a mechanical deal where a cable, a LTR 09 LTR throttle, thumb throttle to an 09 LTR cable, and we worked with Raw Connections on that. We told them what we wanted, and they delivered really, really nicely. We went over it, and basically, you put the Stark throttle underneath the hood on a billet bracket, and you twist the throttle housing, which is really small at that point, maybe 1 inch, with a cable, and you twist the throttle like that, which, it's an ingenious idea. And Fredworks was the first one that came up with it over in Europe, and he deals directly with Stark. And Stark was amazed when they saw this thumb throttle on the ATV with Fredworks, and that's who I talked to first about it. And then I took that information and gave it to Raw Connections, and between the three of us, we got it done. And it's a really nice kit. So if you have a dirt bike and you want a thumb throttle on it, you can have that.
Well, that's cool. What was the overall weight? There's somebody in the chat is asking, did you weigh the machine?
Oh, absolutely. We weighed it. We did the weight biases, the whole 9 yards. 363.
Oh, wow.
So when do we get to see it on a TT track against the 450s?
It's happening. The bike was delivered at Georgia, at Chicani, finally, to the owner. And Michael Houghton is the father. Cody Houghton is the rider. He's a great Pro-Am rider right now, young kid. They're real serious. Yeah. So he's going to be, apparently they do have a class. It's not the pro class. It's kind of like a Pro-Am class, but right in the rule book, apparently, it says that you can run an electric powered ATV as long as the electric motor came from a dirt bike.
Well, there you go, right?
Yeah, so that's the first people that are actually going to let this thing race against the piston engines. So, and I'm billing 5 right now. 2. Yeah, 2 more in a TRX, which I already have 1 done. Now, when I say done, now it's kit form. So I'm sending that stuff to the end user. They're going to assemble everything. So on these other 2, and then I got 3 in-house builds going, 2 Gen 3 Walsh YFZR based Starks, and then 1 Gen 2 Walsh LTR based Stark, which is really cool. It's on a jig table right now. That's pretty cool. And it's funny because Dirt Wheels, when we started talking about this, Dirt Wheels actually released a picture of that motor and battery in a Gen 2 chassis. So that's actually happening right now.
Well, that's pretty cool. The results, I know you're going to be biased to a point. Do you think that electric quad is going to dominate?
It depends what horsepower setting they let it run at. You can adjust horsepower and braking in about 2 minutes right on the dashboard. I heard you can lock it in, so they may say, "Hey, you're gonna run at 50 horse." If they do that, it's not gonna dominate. I think I've been running it at 60, so all the videos you've seen are at 60. I think that at 60 horsepower, I think it's gonna be a problem. Anything greater than that, because you can go all the way up to 80. I think it'll be a problem. The thing I do miss about it is the clutch, where it's kind of good and bad. You just got to learn how to ride it, but you don't have that. You can pull in the clutch, you can build up your power, and you can snap the clutch. So if you're coming out of a corner and you want to hit a double, you better make sure you got enough onions you know, don't get me wrong, it comes on immediately, but it still has to build. Now on a piston bike, you know, say you're coming out of a corner in second, you got to clear double or something, you know, you can you can kind of hit the clutch or something and, you know, build a little bit more power quicker, and you can be in that perfect gear where you got to realize on the electric bike, there's one gear. It has Stark tells me it has 600, over 600 foot-pounds of torque. Now you'd have to have that though, because you have no transmission and you have no clutch.
What's the wheel spin like? You know, I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to have to deal with some of that.
The wheel spin's not bad at all. It makes incredible traction, because you're not in any gears, you're not clutching this thing. You cannot beat it off the line. It's not beatable off the line. I've raced other dirt bikes. I've raced the dirt bike versus 450, brand new 450 dirt bikes. It's too fast. It's too quick. It doesn't make problems. You're not shifting. It's just going forward. In the quad, it's even more dangerous because in the quad, it's actually more controllable. You can use more power, and you got more stability, and it's even faster, in my opinion, in the quad.
So you brought up the battery life a little bit ago, and Joe, anytime you want to chime in, you just jump in, bud.
Right on.
You brought up battery life on a TT track. There, you know, you're running on 20 laps basically. Some of your heat races are less. Are we going to run a battery all day? Are we bringing it back in and charging it? How is that going to work for that machine?
You're going to have to put it on the charger. Absolutely. I did meet a guy at the GNCC race that's currently campaigning in the 250 class, a battery bike that he built. Pretty nice. They did a good job. It's nice. And you could change the battery. It's kind of like a Milwaukee drill, kind of, but it's just way bigger. So you can change the battery in 10 seconds. And I did it. I seen him do it. So that's cool. So people are gearing up for this. But you're not going to be, you can change this battery, but it's going to be 20 minutes. So you may want to have a battery. Like if we were racing a pro motocross, I think it would get through a pro motocross moto. I don't know. But if we were, I think it would. But if we were and it was, I think you might have to do a battery swap in between motos. But honestly, that really isn't even that much work. Wash the bike, do a battery swap, and boom, you got a fresh battery going into Moto 2, which would be definitely doable. I mean, because if you're on a piston engine bike, you're doing gas, you're doing oil, you're doing clutches, you're doing at Wienen, when I was working for Wienen, we were doing pipes, you know, so you were doing a lot of stuff in between motos. So I think changing this battery would actually kind of be easier than all the stuff you were doing on a piston bike. But yeah, that's what I think about the battery life.
So what is the overall time frame at 60 horsepower that you get?
I never went from 100% charge to 0, but I have done a bunch of videos and stuff, and I've rode it for a half hour or so, but here's the deal. If you're on the gas, let's say you're on the electric, sounds funny, and you're just giving it everything it's got, I'm sure it's going to run down a lot quicker than doing, a couple full throttle pulls and stuff like that, because, you are on the electric. So it's going to be draining, but I think you could get 45 minutes out of this thing at 60.
Wow, that's pretty damn good.
How much do you think the track is going to play a role in battery life? Say if you're racing on a TT where it's very hard packed, there's no loam, there's really very little rolling resistance, versus if somebody wanted to set one up and go race at Chicani, which is a sand track, it's going to have a lot more drag. How much, do you have any idea how much, just how heavy the track is going to affect it?
It's definitely going to make a difference. Absolutely. I don't have those figures, but that's a good question. And I think that it's definitely going to play a part in battery life for sure.
Do you notice as you ride it? Because obviously, you know, with a gas bike, if you have a 60 horsepower motor, you know, heat building up in the engine will have a minuscule, almost probably for most riders, undetectable effect on, you know, maybe a little horsepower loss as the engine gets super, super hot late in a moto, not like an air-cooled bike. But with electric, you know, all those of us who grew up, you know, playing with RC cars and stuff, you know, you've got fresh batteries in the thing. It's like it screams. But as you get down toward the bottom, you notice the car getting slower. How does it work with these batteries and these bikes? You know, when you're 2/3 of the way to empty or 3/4 of the way to empty, does power fall off, or is it like all and nothing?
Yeah, I think it's more like a lithium ion where it's kind of all or nothing. I didn't notice it. Okay. So I can't notice from 90 to 70%. It feels exactly the same. Now, I've never let it get down to 20% or something like that because I'm so like me, the first charge, I went to full, you know, I left it and then I rode it. And then I would start doing like, you know, percentage charges where maybe it had 50% and I'd plug it in that night and, you know, and I get it there in the morning and it'd be fully charged. So, but I didn't notice the power going away when the percentages got lower. I did not notice that.
Most of your electric tools don't drop until you get to that 1 bar.
Exactly.
Then you notice a fall off. And usually on a new tool, when it gets to 1 bar, it's not that way. As that tool gets older is when you start noticing those issues.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great information from Lenny. That's exactly, I think it's probably going to work.
So in the chat, they're asking about shocks. What difference in the valving and the suspension? Because the acceleration of the motor from a stock Honda, we're just going to use a Honda. Sorry, guys, in the chat, because that's just what I'm going to come up with. A TRX 450R stock motor versus a TRX 450R built motor, there are changes in the way you valve the shocks. So what's the difference between the electric and the shock valving?
The weight bias on the first TRX we did was 49.9 in the front, 50.1 in the back, which is almost, but don't get me wrong, I had a -2 swing arm on it. Okay. So that was almost dead on 50-50. We didn't make any changes as of now to the shocks. Now the shocks were set up for a pro level TRX 450R, probably making around 60 horse, and it felt real good on the electric unit. So
When
we
will we
don't
see a Supercross version
yet on Moto. It's coming. To answer that question, we were going to have to get some pro level riders on here. I am talking to numerous pro level riders that want one of these or want to test one of these. One of them's Nick Janusa. I don't really want to mention the other one's name, but Nick is pretty open about it. He's actually, I'm building a Walsh / Janusa Gen 3 based off of his race bike. So there we will have really good info when he does his testing up in New Jersey. We will have his lap times, his shock settings on his gas and on his electric. So the bikes will look identical, other than one will have an electric motor and one will have a gas motor. So that's going to be good. But right now, I don't have that information. We're not there yet.
Are there any things that we need to look for as far as deterioration in chain or carrier bearings or anything like that that the electric's going to cause more, with the more torque is going to cause more issues? Or is it all going to be really similar at this point?
I mean, honestly, I think you're going to be right there. I think you're going to be neck and neck. I don't foresee any of that as a problem. Our chain, where we put the countershaft sprocket in relationship to the pivot bolt, what type of motor this thing, it's actually way smoother than a gas motor. So you're not jerking the clutch, you're not hitting the tranny, you're just rolling this thing on and off, really. I think in reality, you might, if it's going to be either worse or better, I think it could possibly be better, even though you have more torque. When you ride this thing, you're not beating it it has enough, if you know what I mean. Like you're not looking for more. You're not beating the crap out of this thing, trying to get it to do what you want it to do. It's just doing it. If you could kind of understand that, it's kind of strange, but it's cool. It really is cool. And like I said, nobody has motoed an electric ATV on a high level yet. So, I'm sure we'll have to revisit some of these things, and I'm sure it'll be fun to come back and look at the actual, the truth behind all this. But I'm looking forward to it.
So speaking from a media guy, I'm gonna butt in here for Joe, because he makes these amazing videos where he does all of this analysis and rides these machines and puts it out there and does this for the community. When will we see something like this where we can get it to a guy like Joe or get it to the rest of the media so that we can evaluate it ourselves?
Awesome. I think that will probably be available within 6 months, to have an actual unit. Because my plan is to have 2 of these units running that I can loan somebody like Joe in his business, where he can do an evaluation. Not to change the subject, but I was talking to one of my clients last night, and I know Joe's a Raptor 700 guy. We've talked about that before, and he actually wants to build a Raptor 700 for MX. He's a YFZR guy, and I thought of Joe and about some of our conversations when he was talking about that, and kind of cool.
That's great. Joe, you're so quiet. You're scaring me here, bud.
No. It's funny. It's like as I come up with a question, Mike answers it. That's my only problem, is that
Right.
every time I come up with something, it gets answered. But that's a good thing. So, hey, don't take it as an insult or disinterest. You guys just keep answering every question I come up with.
Right. He's telepathic there. So you got the 450 covered, or you got the big bike covered. Is there a version for the smaller machines? Maybe the 250 size riders, the younger kids. Do you have something in the works for those?
I don't, but I do think Stark has made some stuff for some smaller stuff. I know KTM's got some smaller stuff. I know there's some people that have done some smaller stuff in our industry, in our niche industry that we're in. I know that Lane Baird, I believe they had done a maybe a Cobra sized electric. I don't know what power plant they used. I don't know much about it, but I do know that it has been in existence. And I know that our industry, as long as it's accepted, I think that this whole electric thing is going to continue to grow throughout the entire range of the levels of riders. And like I said, you might not see a 20-man gate, but I think next year, actually this year, you're going to see some race, and that's going to be in that Northeast TT series, I believe that's what they call it. So there is going to be some, and after that happens, I know it's probably more people are gonna want to participate in that, or maybe not that series, but participate with the electric. So, and look at the Supercross stuff where they've been doing this electric, these KTM's for a while now, haven't they? On these younger riders.
I haven't even seen it.
Yeah,
I thought they were still running. I thought they were still running 65s. Maybe not. The juniors class.
I don't know what class is called. The futures. It might be. It's not the future. I don't know which class it is. I have seen and some of the pro, even the top pro dirt bike guys that have kids. I know if you watch Supercross, which I do watch Supercross, they'll advertise for some of these electric companies that, and what you're seeing more electric, like Lenny said, you're seeing more electric with the kids, with the dirt bikes at first. So they're getting them on electric first, and then they're going to gas, which I think that electric is going to start following them up through the ranks. I don't see the technology leaving, so I just don't see it going away, if you will. I see it only getting better.
Anywhere you got a BMX track, you could have an electric motocross track. Doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the city.
I hear about that all the time. These are the gas people that actually are like open-minded, and they're like, you know what? If I would have had an electric motorcycle or ATV when I was growing up, these tracks wouldn't have been shut down. I hear that a lot. I hear about these tracks, and I have that happen in my hometown with a man named Billy Golightly, one of my friends. He's a real estate guy now, but he owned a track in my town, literally in between Dreamland and Walsh Racecraft, probably 4 or 5 miles from my shop, and they fought against the town, but they had to shut down, and it was mainly due to the noise, mainly. So it could, if electric was here at that point, it could have been it could have probably still remained open for electric.
I was pretty anti myself in the beginning, and then Joe and I've had some in-depth, deep conversations about it. And I'm still not 100% sold, but the idea of bringing motocross, ATV motorcycles or ATVs, go-karts, off-roading to the community on a baseball field style area right in town is so intriguing to me, because the sport needs to grow. And I think this is the greatest way to keep it growing. You have a little track right there, and the rodeo grounds. You could have a little track in the rodeo grounds, having a little event. Boom, there you go, and nobody's pissed because it didn't make any noise.
Right, and let's face it. There's a lot of. I mean, I use this term loosely and probably wrong because I use most of my terms wrong, but there's a lot of Karens out there. So if you don't have people complaining, out of sight, out of mind, out of ears, out of mind, they're not going to be a thing, and like I said, our sport is holding on, but we haven't seen the growth that we did in the very beginning. There was a lot of growth when Lenny and his brother were involved, and not that there's not still involved, but like in the very beginning before my time, there was a lot of Rodney Gentry, Gary Dent, and this Marty Hart, these type guys, Curtis Sparks, and then there was a lot of growth then, and then it was small, and the aftermarket kind of kept it going, and then boom, we had that big deal with Suzuki, and then all the manufacturers got in. Well, now we're hanging on with Yamaha here, on an ATV that was built how many years ago, which is still a great ATV, absolutely. And now we're here, and we're not seeing the numbers that we were seeing, and now what is even sadder is old dirt bike tracks around me that used to let ATVs ride. They don't even let ATVs ride anymore, and that is the worst thing, in my opinion. Period.
I agree too. A, they're losing business, and B, they're cutting our throat. It just shrinks our industry more and more all the time.
That's really bad, because now you're a young guy, you want to ride, you got to make it trails or your own track, because the local place isn't going to let you ride. So what's that make you want to do? It makes you want to go get a dirt bike if you want to participate.
Exactly. I hear. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, to kind of shift gears a little bit. So, Mike, did you have any relationship? Did you ever get to talk to Rod Lapuznak at Suzuki? I know you guys back with the factory team used to have parts on those bikes. Do you have a relationship with Rod Lapuznak? Have you talked to him?
I did know Rod back when the team was going with Wayne, Rod. I'm drawing a blank, but the man from Yoshimir, Brent Russell.
Brent Russell, yeah.
Those guys, at the time when Suzuki was coming, and to the defense of that era, people were acting like, holy cow, if you get on board now, 5 years from now, this thing is going to be like Supercross. So they were telling me, Brent Russell was telling me, let's get your parts in it wasn't Parts Unlimited, it was another one that they dealt with it.
Tucker Rocky.
Yeah, Tucker Rocky. And they sent me all the contracts and everything, but the reality of that, the reality of us making these parts in America on a small level and selling them in Tucker Rocky for the margins that they're talking about was not, we could not do that.
It puts you out of business.
Yeah, it would have put us out of business. They were acting like this was going to be, Walsh Racecraft's going to be this household name, and you guys are all going to be millionaires, So, but that wasn't the case. And then, boom, 3 years later or whatever, they're all gone. So yes, I did talk to Rod back in the day, but not for a long time.
I was curious about his name because I believe he's a very high position person at Triumph North America. And so that's kind of why I was curious, because, obviously, Walsh Racecraft is kind of like Skunk Works for ATVs. You guys are building prototype stuff, X-Planes, crazy stuff that, is cutting edge and could be the tip of the spear for some of these OEMs to follow. Do you have any interest in I don't know if it's a legacy piece, but you do so much R&D and development and this and that and the other. Have you considered approaching any OEMs, whether it's a major OEM like a Kawasaki or a Honda, or even like a smaller OE like a Beta or a Triumph? Have you thought about talking to any of these guys? Because obviously the things you do are incredible, but for overall sustainability and the sport to exist, I feel like we need more production that people can buy in bolt wash parts too. Have you considered at all trying to pitch or push some OEMs to make some moves with you guys?
Well, U.S. Highlands we had that relationship with, they were a small company, like you just said, a Beta or something. They're they're smaller than that, but we already talked about that and how they died and everything. But we thought we were going to get a big break there. And what they were going to do is we were going to build them 200 frames over, I don't know, 2 years or something. And they were going to then get the ball rolling with that. And then from there, they were going to go to China or one of the Asian, probably China. I think it was China at the time. And they were going to have them reproduce the chassis with our label on it, which that sounds kind of, maybe I shouldn't even have said that, but with the designed by Walsh Racecraft or whatever, and then continue selling on a bigger level. That was their plan. Hey, let's develop something. Let's build something. Let's prototype it. Let's get it out there. And then, as time goes by, let's get it made more production based. And, I was okay with that. I was like, that's kind of cool. I would be honored to build the first. So that's how we did that's how the Gen 2 hybrid started, actually, because we built their first chassis on that fixture. We built that fixture for them, actually. And then after they died, I said, well, we might as well start making these things because what else are we going to do? We already have the fixture. So we started the Gen 2 hybrid with the CRFs and stuff like that. But I would love to work, to answer that question, I would be honored to work with somebody like that. I've worked with Can-Am when John Natale was riding with them. I've worked with Suzuki, of course. We worked with Cowie. But nothing, nothing. And we're working with Pantera or out of Canada on that 2-stroke 600 in that Gen 1 chassis. We're trying to, but that's on a smaller deal. But I would be an honor to work with, but I don't see, nobody's calling me and I'm not calling anyone. So nothing, it's a standstill at this point. I have those companies are way larger than us. So we're kind of like doing this every day. And until they get motivated about this, we're at their mercy. There's nothing, unless we had a personal relationship, like maybe Joe knew Rod, and they wanted to do a Triumph, and then I was involved. Hey, yeah, I'd love that. That's great. I'd be the first guy there. I'd be on the plane going to Triumph or whatever. I'd be into this, especially at this point in my life. But as of right now, I don't have any of that stuff going. I mean, I have the Stark thing going. I got that 2-stroke 600 going. Things like this. Obviously, we're putting a lot of different dirt bike motors in ATVs that we think could be competitive and stuff like that, and doing that. But there's another issue here, and that issue is the AMA. If honestly, because they only see blue. I love blue. I mean, I like Lenny said, let's talk about the hat. The hat, Phoenix Racing. Great partnership there, David Eller and all that. And actually, they did great. They got on the podium last night. So that's shout out to David and his crew. I think it was Cullen Park. But Gary and the boys over there. But, so, yeah, I mean, I would be the first guy there. But at this point, nothing's really materialized. And the AMA just wants to, say, if you're not riding a Yamaha, we don't really want you there. What we need is a developmental class. That's what we need. We need a class where Lenny and Leonard Duncan and Walsh Racecraft could get together and they could build a bike, or they, or whoever, you guys, somebody supplies a motor, somebody supplies a chassis, Doug Roll, and we can race like we did in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, where we had these hybrids on the line and everybody's having a great time. I was a great time of racing. People want to say it wasn't, but I thought it was real good. I mean, I loved it. That was where I grew up. Now you got to the factory, that's cool too. But
not to interrupt you, Mike, but that is when realistically, that is when the industry was at its strongest, because all of the independents, not the factories, were carrying the load, and we were developing and building new machines constantly, and the industry was actually growing. Then the factories came in, and everybody thought that that was the end all be all, the greatest thing ever. Well, when the factories left, they decimated the industry. We're still recovering from that.
100%. And you are a lot better speaker than I am. And these things in my mind, I try to get out, but this, you got it out correctly, I believe. I think, I don't want to say that it was a negative, because, I know a lot of my friends that benefited greatly from the factories coming in, but as a sport, it's real hard to say, but as a sport, it did seem like we were developing more. I mean, look, everybody on that pro line almost has the exact same setup. And if it's not the exact same setup, it was copied from that setup. So it's probably very close to the exact same setup. I don't want to say this publicly, but
you're about
these
to
probably be intertwined and interchanged to other ATVs and components. And what fun is that? Like yes, everybody's running real good, and everybody's fast, and that's good, and that's important, and I understand that. But you still don't have the developmental side of it going on. You don't have that growth, where if we had a mod class where people like JB, and actually talked to Jody at the race a little bit. He's doing real good with his health, so that's good. And all these people, maybe Doug Roll, he's very knowledgeable. Doug's a guy that I've looked up to. Great dude. I mean, some of these innovators to get, I remember when he had the Kawasaki two-strokes out there. That was cool. Everything was cool. But if we could start pushing, and it doesn't have to be the pro class, it could be the pro mod class. Like if you look at NHRA, they have a pro stock class and they have a pro mod class. And the pro mod class is taking over right now. That's where everything's going. So I think we need more development
look at the Le Mans series. You've got the BMWs and the Porsches, and you've got the road production based cars, but the class that's the coolest is the GTP class.
There you go. I don't know about that for racing, but I'm following you, and I think you're saying the coolest class is the ones with the
hand-built
cars. Yeah.
So Mike, you brought something up that I want to touch on, and so anybody listening in the chat, this is not a negative on Phoenix Racing at all. You've been around, you've seen the development of the time before you and the companies that were involved that were revolutionizing the industry. And then those companies would plateau a little, and then a new company would come along with a new design. What I'm asking is, if you look at Phoenix Racing right now in the ATV world, they are the bar. Everything that they touch in the ATV world is turning to gold. Bryce and Neal, Joel Hetrick, John Galata Jr. seems to be elevating now. And are we seeing another company come in and change the face of our sport?
I think that, and I've talked about this with some other people and a little bit private conversations, but it's funny. I've worked with a lot of companies, and the way, I don't take this as a negative, the way David runs his operation is he's a businessman, and as long as everybody does their jobs, we got no problems. So I try to do my job to the best of our ability. I love the team. I want to stay as a part of the team. I think they got a lot to offer. I don't know if they're changing things. do know that they are running a very professional program, with nice trucks, nice, awnings, nice, very, very professional people. I mean, Gary is probably, no offense to the other mechanics, I have relationships with a lot of people, but he's one of the most professional people I've ever dealt with. And when I say professional, I don't mean that their heart isn't in it. I just mean that they might even be more mature. Their heart is in it, but yet they brought a certain level of maturity to the sport. And I think, and in this day and age, I think that's development. I think that's growth, actually. And I think that people, I think Chad Wienen, after the factories left, you didn't have that factory appeal that you had, but Chad Wienen's program was very, very strong and very professional as well. So I don't want to say that Phoenix is another level up from Chad, and I don't want to act like Phoenix like shadowed that, but Chad's company was very, when it was at the peak, when he was at the peak, he had a very professional deal going on. And I think that's good. I mean, I'm a backwoods guy myself, but I do see the value in a professional based, organization like this. And I say organization because the Phoenix organization is big, right? You got Supercross, Motocross, Arena Cross. You got Dylan Ferrandis. I mean, that's a huge name. He was a champion. I mean, I don't even know how Phoenix put that deal together, but obviously they're moving up and they got more pull with the factories now, and they're a privateer based. I mean, not privateer. I mean, they have factory, connections, but they like you said, it's David Eller, it's his dream, and Joel Hetrick. It just works. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that right now that they're untouchable as far as the rest of the guys. And there's some great guys that are chasing them, but I don't see in the near future anybody beating Joel Hetrick or Bryson Neal. And I'm a huge Walker Fowler fan. And these two riders are in their specific industry are killing it. They're just a notch above.
They are, and it's just it's progression. David got. I mean, with Joel. I mean, Joel's always been an extreme talent. You know that, Lenny. Joel. And you can't say enough about Joel Hetrick. Like, Cody Gibson was one of the most talented riders I've ever known in my life. Like, I've worked with most all the riders, and Cody Gibson was by far. He was one of, if not the most talented people to ever sit on a four-wheeler. And that is from the heart. I truly believe that. And you find and when Cody Gibson says, you got to watch this Joel Hetrick guy. And this is when Joel was like 14, 13 years old, or 14, 15. I was like, oh, Joel, who? Who? I don't know this guy. And then he brought that Kawasaki into I think it was at Loretta's, into the Pro-Am class. And this kid was maybe 15. I don't even know how old he was. He was not old. And he was fast. And I saw what he was riding, and I'm like, that bike is too big for him. Like, he was a little guy, and he was riding the wheels off that thing. So I think all David's doing is he's doing, or is not just him. I mean, he has people in certain positions, but I think they're just putting all the right pieces. They're putting very good, maybe I don't want to say the best, but they're putting the best riders on the best parts and giving them the best possible opportunity to win. And what you're seeing is you're seeing the results right now. It's like, my slogan is Walsh Racecraft. It's best possible products, bringing out the best possible rider in you. So, I mean, I think that the Phoenix is just that. Now, I mean, I know that David wants to see Joel win more championships. I really believe that. So I think we're going to see Joel keep pushing. He's going to push. I think you got 5 years with him pushing. I watched him at Echecani. He did make one mistake, but other than that, this entire year I have not seen him make one mistake, and he's been flawless. His starts have been there. One of the starts at Echecani wasn't primo, but that was a steel gate. You know, they're coming off of a steel grate, kind of like Supercross steel, and you're gonna have to. But when you deal with somebody passionate that has enough, and that's why the factories are so dominant. They have the money to provide for these riders. So you're right. I don't want to say it's a monopoly, or like I don't want to say it's Walmart of ATV racing, because it's not. It's still a passion. But yeah, they're going for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just don't know if we're going to see, unless we get another style company that's developing like Phoenix, you're not going to see their riders dethroned anytime soon, because they're rolling quality machines out to the racetrack. They're doing everything that they need to do to be at the highest level. And I think it's incredible to watch, because I love that portion of it. As a fan, though, it's discouraging almost, because the same guy wins every race.
I understand. I get that. I really do. And nobody's perfect. I don't care who we are. We all make mistakes, and there's competition out there. I mean, there is, and you got Walker Fowler, you got you got some people out there that are fast. In MX, you got Bryce Ford. I mean, he's a true talent. I mean, and that program they built with Baldwin is a stellar program. Now, is Bryce going to beat Joel? Too many times this year? No one can answer that. But he is fast. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, nothing lasts forever. We got to keep, I say we, but like the people that are on my product, we got to keep pushing. We got to keep developing, and we can't sit stagnant, because when you do, you're going to get taken down. So I say keep pushing and ride this thing out as long as we can. And the people that are, in second right now are going to keep pushing, and they're probably going to win some races here and there. So, you know how it is, Lenny. You've been on top, and you and your brother have been on top of even Europe. And I remember when you guys went to Ponte-Vu, and this is a long time ago, but people get older, people take different routes, and I mean, I had some really great guys working with me for a long time, and me and my brother had to kind of we kind of had to keep going. We lost some good guys, and we had to replace them, and so I mean, nothing lasts forever. I don't know how long the Phoenix team is going to be on top, but I'm here for it at this point.
Well, they got a professional organization going, and it's cool to see someone put that much into the ATV portion of it. It's just, I just wanted to get a little more insight to where they were coming from. And when you run a business that strong, it goes back to when we were younger. It was the Honda mentality. You walked in, you were the biggest, baddest guy on the planet, and nobody was going to beat you, and we're everything. And the Honda guys were like that. I mean, that's just the way it was back then. And
Right.
these guys seem to have taken that attitude and took it to another level.
Yeah, they're doing good, and hats off to them. And I don't know if you watched Echecani. I don't know if you've been following, the Chad Wienen season. Have you or no?
I have. I'm a huge fan of Chad. I like Chad a lot, personally as well as a racer. Um, I'm a little worried. I want the old Chad back, but Chad's 40 years old, and he may not ever be the old Chad.
We're at that point right now, I think, where Chad has still got a lot of speed, and he knows when to zig and when to zag, and he's 8-time national champion. We know all that, but 40 years old is he's got a lot of responsibility with his kids and his family, and all the stuff he's got going on. So you just can't, could Chad win races? Absolutely. Will Chad ever stand in the center of the box again? I don't know. I mean, it may be, but watching him race now, that's put a lot of excitement into back in the ATV motocross, because, you have guys battling with Chad. You have Wesley Wolf battling with Chad. You got Bryce Ford, and I don't. It's not sad to me, because Chad, was the lion. He won a lot of races, and I'm not. This is good. It's not. I hate to say it's not. What I mean is, we all come. Everything always comes to an end. You can't be on top forever. And Chad had a lot of wins, more than and will. I'm not saying he ain't gonna still win. I'm just saying that it's getting tough, man. I mean, it's that whole top 5 is fast. It's even 7, top 7. That they're all rolling, and like we talked about, they're all on close to the same equipment. Obviously, some people have better equipment, but it's not like one guy's on a YFZR and the other guy's on a Raptor 250. I mean, this stuff is close.
Right. I got a couple more questions, and then we can let you guys enjoy your Sunday. Have you and Stark had any deeper conversations about possibly doing a production deal? I know we touched on that
No,
side of it
yeah.
with the factories, but we didn't touch onto it with Stark.
We've talked a little bit via direct message, but nothing that meant anything. Just, they might have said beautiful build, or, this or that, but nothing. I do know that Fredworks have had he had talked to Stark. He's been to Stark. I haven't talked to him in a little while, but he's an innovator over there in Europe. And so will Stark come out with an ATV? Kind of jumping right to it. I would not say they wouldn't, because I think they're having trouble selling their motorcycle right now. And when that happens, they have a good power plant. They could whip up a chassis and, get something out there, because they got to sell these motors, right? I don't really think that I know they came out with like an XC. Did you see that?
No.
Did you see that? Yeah. So they have another bike out there, and I think they've come out with almost like I think they may come out with like an enduro, with like an off-road bike too, with this platform, like a KLR 650 or something type thing. But I know they're starting to vary. I know they're starting to go in different directions, and that tells me, here's what tells me that they're having trouble selling bikes is, I went and I bought the first bike, and it was like 13 grand or something. I think when they come out, they're like 12 grand. Then when I went to buy the bike, they were like 13 grand. I had it on order since the very beginning. So if you placed your order at the very beginning, you got to stay at 12,000 or whatever. But then if you just ordered it that day, it then went up to 13. Well, then I went to buy a bike for one of my clients, and that sucker was down to like 10.9. Same bike. Actually, it's the Gen 2 Stark. They have a Gen 1 and a Gen 2. It's slightly different. And the Gen 2 has reverse, which the Gen 1 can have reverse, but it's got like a different valve. It's got like a different top on the motor. One of them's aluminum, and the other one is plastic. It's like dark plastic. The dark plastic is the Gen 1. And they say that the Gen 2, the battery life is slightly better. It's a little bit more efficient, but basically it's the same thing. So I think that you will see some stuff. You could possibly see some stuff out of Stark. Now, you really got to look at the sport quad market. Is it how, like we talked about before, how many YFZs are they selling? Like how many? 3,000, 7,000, 20,000? I don't know. I think I know about where they're selling, and I don't know if that's enough for another major competitor to come in and want to produce a sport quad.
Aren't they selling everything 700 and 450 that they build?
I would agree with you. I would say yes, but I don't know how many they build.
Here's a question, and that's, if another player came, because right now, if you own a YFZ 450R, I've got a 2013 Raptor, and I'll probably buy a 26 Raptor because it's the 20th anniversary next year. It's my 30th anniversary riding sport quads. The stars are aligning, so I'll probably put another one in the garage for sentimental sake. But my 2013 is, it's in great shape. It doesn't get beat on that much. And like, why would I go buy a new one? But then I think, you hear Kawasaki talking about, two-stroke dirt bike, and they broke the internet and everybody got so excited. And, there's been some internal discussions with Kawasaki at this point. Like, could you guys even do it? Could you even, and of course the problem is you can't, there's no like red sticker classification for ATVs. Like there is for dirt bikes, but there's not for quads. So it's like unknown. Could they even put them in the dealership? But the thought of being able to go buy a two-stroke 300 ATV was like, me and Jeff at Dirt Wheels are like, we'll empty the garage if that's what it takes to buy one, if they built it. So do you think that, how much do you think the numbers are where they are because there's nothing new? If you already have a built Raptor, what do you need to go buy a new one for? If you already have a built YFZ 450R, unless the thing's just worn out, just absolutely worn out, why do you have to go buy a new one? And yet they'd still sell 3,000 a year of the same bike they've sold since 09 for the YFZ and 06 for the Raptor. So do you think there could be some spike in sales if somebody came out with something new? Because, like we were telling, me and Jeff from Dirt Wheels were telling Kawasaki, like, you got all the guys who have Yamahas who don't need to go buy a new Yamaha, which is driving even Yamaha sales down. So who do you have to cater to? All the guys that just want something that's not blue, although we like blue. All the guys who are keeping their TRXs and their LTs and their Banshees and all these old two-strokes alive, like all these guys you'd probably see the 250R market value cut in half if
Nope.
Oh, I think you would. We could debate that for an hour. But I mean, why do I want to buy I'm buying a TRX 250R right now. I'm that guy. And I'm going to put a lot of money and a lot of time into fixing it up so I can have a nice two-stroke. If I could go buy a brand new,
let's be clear. Who's going to be putting the time in to make it nice?
Hey, I made deals. That's your problem. But if I could just go get a brand new, Kawasaki 300 two-stroke, that's what I would get.
So hold on a second.
Real quick, that 250R is the 1967 Corvette of ATVs, or the GT 500. It doesn't matter if a new one comes out; you're still gonna have these 250R guys.
We're building new parts for 250Rs right now.
Yeah,
New, we're coming out with new
250R
product. In 2025, we will produce new product that's never been on the industry before for TRX 250.
for 250R. You got people building, you got LED. Now, don't get me wrong, probably not building thousands, but I love where you are, Joe. Like, I think you're right in a lot of ways. And I just wanted to touch in on that one thing where you said that if they did come out with new stuff, would they sell more? And I want to answer that. Yes, they would. But would they sell enough to make their money back in the development fees that it costs to develop that? That's what I don't think they would. You see what I'm saying? Yes, they would sell a lot, but would they sell enough to offset the cost? Because I know these people are not stupid. Like these people are not dumb. If they knew they could make money by producing a sport ATV, I really think they would do it.
Why doesn't Suzuki just make the LTR all over again? It still would compete.
Why'd they stop making the LTR?
Because
the EPA was going to fine the living shit out of them.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I do believe that. How can you believe that?
Because when they go through green sticker compliance, obviously the bike has to meet certain emission standards. And again, I could be wrong, but I believe this is correct. This is what I've heard from numerous sources. The Suzuki as well as the Can-Am both had dirty maps in the ECU from the factory. And they got Can-Am one year, and the following year they got Suzuki, because the cherry bomb didn't actually add anything new into the system. It just basically changed some grounding in the wiring, and it said, hey, ECU, that dirty map that's in there, use that. So Suzuki actually built non-compliance into their machine, and that was very expensive for them from what I understand.
Right. And that's why they pulled out. Same thing that happened with Volkswagen. Well, they did the same stuff. And I bet if Suzuki came out with that quad racer again, just as is, you roll the 2010 out, other than fixing the tranny, you roll the same bike out, people are going to buy it.
Yeah, and please take the briefcase of electronics off the side. That would be great too.
I would just leave it alone. I mean, you just fix that transmission and leave it alone. It's still a great bike, just the way it's sat.
It is a great bike, and the only thing that made it go away is nobody was putting technology. Everybody started putting everything into the Yamaha.
Yeah, because
it's just all the stuff being sold. I think they still sell two-stroke stuff. You cannot tell me that LTR produces more dirt than a two-stroke. I just can't see it.
But it's different. It's different. It's different because I'd had a conversation with a bigwig at Yamaha in regards to why Yamaha doesn't build a two-stroke ATV, or why they don't build a fully uncorked, YFZ 450R. Why they have to meet these emission standards? Like, why can't they sell them in California? And of course, CARB is its own communist party, and that's a whole other discussion. But they're, through legislation and the industry advocating for itself, they have red sticker certifications for all these two-stroke dirt bikes and the motocross four-strokes, because they don't have to meet the same emission standards that the YFZ 450R has to meet in order to be sold. There is no red sticker classification, from what I was told by someone high up internally at Yamaha, for ATVs. And that's why that's a contributing factor to why they come out corked up so much.
I don't believe, honestly, I don't believe any of it. That's just me. I don't believe any of it. I'm not a conspiracy theory. Well, my girlfriend is, but like, I don't believe you. You can't believe anything these people say. You just can't.
Well, it's all a scam, taking the freaking stuff away from us and over regulating this stuff. All that regulation shit needs to go away because we're supposed to live in the freest country in the world and we don't because we're over regulated, we're overtaxed. You know, there's just too many rules. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole nother day, right, Joe?
Bring back 2-stroke 3-wheelers.
Let's just bring back 3-wheelers with 4-stroke engines. That would be great too. Those bikes are great. Mike, have you got to ride one of those modern day 4-stroke 3-wheelers?
Yeah, I built one. I built one for Phoenix.
Oh, well, there you go. They are so awesome.
I put my own. Me and Bill from BBC are really actually good buddies. He actually does some work for me actually, and I'm the East Coast installer for BBC. Like my shop is. So yeah, we've rode them. I have a brand new big wheel in my shop, CRF, right now for one of my good clients that lives in the Keys. Like it's awesome. It's so fun to ride. It's probably taking delivery of it in a week or so. But yeah, I mean these 3-wheelers, these 4-stroke 3-wheelers, don't get me wrong, the rake isn't where it needs to be on the chassis because it's a conversion, but it's still amazing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I rode one. They're fast as hell.
Yeah, they're fun. I like them. Gentlemen, I want to thank you guys so much. Next week, when we come on the show on Sunday morning, we had a big discussion last time about LT250s and some of the production parts and where they're at and why people don't make them. And I want to get into that discussion again because I've done some research about it. So in the chat, you guys will get your answers of why some of this stuff's not available for the LT250 and the cost that come with it. We talked a little bit about it today. Mike touched on it with the developmental cost of, are you going to get your money back for your initial investment? And that's, and that's just tough. It really is. So
it's incredibly tough.
Gentlemen, have a great Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us on the morning show and ATV Talk. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you guys next week.
See you guys.
Good seeing you guys.
Bye-bye.